All right. Hello, everyone. Alec here from Foot for Talk podcast, our podcast. We're going to dive into the USA match that happened last night. A lot of different opinions on it. And, as we're starting out with the podcast, I think it's foundational to speak to the community and reach out to people about specific matches that the U.S. cares about, being an American based podcast trying to bring awareness to soccer here in America. As I've gone through college, I've realized that conducting a study, um, youth soccer and the culture here is not where the Portuguese side of me views it. It's not where I think a lot of people are expecting it to be, even though it feels like it is. And so I think it's important to have these conversations as we're trying to go to podcasts over the course of my last semester, and as we're trying to reach a community and get people to engage and listen to. So without going too much into depth, I think that's where this conversation begins. Because watching the U.S. play against Mexico, Jamaica last night, um, we learned a lot about where the fan base is, and here in America, where our fans are here in America. Competition is not. It clearly is. It's very important for fans to show up. USA versus Jamaica did not have many fans there. In fact, you really didn't hear cheering until Mexico national team fans started to show up for their match, and then they started to really cheer, boo, and I think that came across on the televised that that's what was that's what was happening. But to really dive in depth into the match, the way I put it last night, watching it was U.S. looked completely. It was almost as if, oh gosh, to really describe them and how they played, it was so unattractive. It was so lazy and lackadaisical and laissez-faire, and it wasn't really to the point where you'd expect at this stage where the U.S. is right now, with players playing overseas. And again, there is excuses that can be made for people like Berhalter and the coaching staff and a lot of the players. Hey, we had a day to train. We just got here. We're having a really long season with our club teams. So, but it goes both ways. You're playing in the States, and Jamaica is traveling there. And really, no matter how many days you have to train, you're professionals. And it's your job to come out every day and put on a performance um, for each other and for the competition. I didn't notice any issues yesterday with Berhalter. And again, that's something that I think is important to dive into as well. I don't want this video to be very long, but I will say it. I, for one, am okay with him being the coach. I think a lot of people who are not okay with him being the coach are one who have, for some reason, high standards of this national team, as if we should be winning the World Cup right now, and we shouldn't. We're many years off of that path, but we're on a path towards it. I think the normal discussion can be this team could be a World Cup winner within 20 to 25 years. There's no way we're winning it in the U.S. 4 years from now. Absolutely no way. We're not prepared for that. And that, again, that's not a knock on Berhalter. I don't think he's the issue. I, for one, have liked the style of play that he's brought. Um, I like the possession. I like to see the possession stats. I thought that first half against England that we played, and you can say, well, England wasn't really um, focused that match. England wasn't giving their best that first half. That first half was picture perfect, in my opinion. It was 0-0 at halftime, which is fine. But it was picture perfect. The possession, the chance creation. Pulisic had a huge opportunity. From what I remember, can't remember every detail, but I remember Pulisic having a huge opportunity, striking the post, striking the bar. That was nice to see. Good possession, good movement off the ball. I don't have an issue with Berhalter. I don't have an issue with him being the coach. I, for one, think what Reina's parents did to him is almost the epitome and the epitome of U.S. parents and every child at every level in every sport. It is my son needs to play. My son is better. My son needs to be out there. And that wasn't always the case. Giovanni Reina was you can make that statement and maybe you can look back at it, Berhalter, and reflect on it. But you don't need parents coming in and bringing up a personal past. How petty, how disrespectful, how rude. something that happened with him and his wife. Leave that to them. That is their own personal business. That was none of Reina's father's business, none of Claudia Reina's father's business. And if anything, I, for one, am very disappointed, having been a fan of his, watching his highlights and seeing him. I lose all respect for that. That's another man and his family, and it's a matter that was put to rest long ago. And you try to blackmail him to get him to lose his job, but in the end, I believe Berhalter um, got justice. He should be the coach. He shouldn't have been fired. There's no reason for him to be fired. You lose to Netherlands on a crappy match. That's fair. But he's won 2 Nations Leagues, and some other competitions. And there's a lot of things that you can use to back up, that I can dive into to back up him. But that's not really what this discussion's about. I like Berhalter, and if the comments want to say something otherwise, then I can do a separate video diving into some of Berhalter's success that he's had with this U.S. team. For one, I think the recruitment has been much better, and for two, I think not just recruitment, but the scouting has been much better. The development has been much better. We see many, many, many players taking the risk and going overseas now and being developed elsewhere. That's another topic that we can talk about, is why aren't players being developed here? But that's for another time. I think what's most important is that match yesterday was a step backward, an absolute step backward. It was not a step forward. It was a step backwards. It was completely unattractive. There was no chance creation that first half. It wasn't boring. I don't think anything about that match was boring. I think if you find soccer at any point boring, the sport might just not be for you. Um, because there's beauty in every detail, I think, with this sport. Again, I'm biased. I played the sport. I have a unbiased love for it, or biased love for it. And so what I really am trying to say is, it wasn't boring. There just was no movement. The passing was slow. The weight on the passes was horrific. The movement off the ball wasn't that great either, but every pass was picked up off the ground. There were passes played that were just complete turnovers and chance creations for Jamaica that really, and I said this yesterday. Um, oh gosh, I forget. I said this yesterday. It was almost like if we were playing in the Copa America today, that was a Copa America match, and let's say it was the semifinal against Argentina, it could have been 7-0 with the amount of turnovers and the lack of smart possession. There's simple possession that you have to be able to do right, and we did not do that right. Simple possession, we were horrible. It's a term that I like to use when I'm coaching or when I'm playing, is simple possession. Simple, keeping things simple. Americans don't want to keep things simple. We want to get everything forward because that's what we're used to in football, is throwing the ball forward. The ball is always going forward, and you have to go backwards to go forward sometimes. So it's not like we were doing the wrong things. We were doing the right things wrong. From minute 1 to minute 90, to minute 96, the goal wasn't really us doing anything. Again, we got in the right position, but we're very, very fortunate to have come out on the other end. I had a tweet ready crediting Jamaica. But yeah, this is a huge step backwards for the United States soccer. But again, you can't be upset at Berhalter for it. At the end of the day, we pulled it out. We got the victory. It was a good win. But it must be a different mindset for Mexico on Sunday. Must be a different mindset. But again, that's what I have for you guys. I'd like to dive into it a little bit more. Maybe we can make some more videos like this in the future. But get in the comments. Let me know what you guys think about that match. Again, huge setback, I think. Wasn't really what you want to see from an established, well, not established, but looks to be establishing themselves. It was a step backwards. Again, it's one match though. It's one match, and they're coming together. You can see him hobbling off the pitch last night, and immediately my first thought is those massages in the morning are going to be incredible because they're in pain, they're cramping. It was a tough match. But again, Giovanni Reina comes in, and nothing against him. I have lack of respect for the way his father conducted himself after the World Cup, but I have huge respect for Reina, young kid establishing himself and played terrific. His IQ is clearly growing and clearly developing into really something special. His IQ of the game, the way he sees the pitch, the pass to Haji Wright with outside of the boot, picture perfect. And again, Haji Wright, huge performance from him. What can he do in the future? And what can he do against Mexico? But it'll need to be a totally different mindset. Anyway, thank you guys for tuning in. Did catch a little bit of the Mexico match. The stats favored Panama, it seems, but again, Mexico showing some really good experience in that match. And yeah, didn't get to watch it all. Didn't really get to watch it at all, but seeing 3-0 is pretty telling. But again, for the U.S., different mindset, different approach, and let's see who wins that one. Thank you guys for tuning in.